Woohoo! Hey, good morning. You're listening to Conservative Cat on Cities 92.9, the news and talk, Bloomington Normal. Man, we've only got like 7 days, something like that. 8 days, so a little over a week until the election. We are going to be doing an election night show. As always, after the polls close, you can tune in to Cities 92.9. We're going to be trying to get you results as they come in for your local elections. That election is going to be taking place April 1st, April Fool's Day. I'm not fooling you, though. We are going to be on the air, so you guys can tune in for that. I am woke. I am woke. Call me DEI because I am woken up this morning. I've had a ton of coffee and we've got to get to the news this morning. Okay. So a state lawmaker is dismissing Governor J.B. Pritzker and Nikki Budzinski. Okay. Nikki Budzinski, she's a congresswoman, Democrat. Represents like the Springfield area. She might represent a little bit of not Bloomington Normal, but a little bit maybe of central Illinois. Not quite. It's a big district, but mostly the Springfield area she represents. So Nikki Budzinski and Governor J.B. Pritzker, they got together with a bunch of farmers. I'm using air quotes here, not to dismiss completely what they're doing over there, but you go to their website and you're like, wait a second, this is like organic farmers, like, and they're like, I don't know. I mean, not to say that you're not a farmer, right? But are you really? I mean, I think I'm just going to come out and say it. I looked up the website and I was like, yeah, these guys don't really look like they're like farmers, like mass producing for corn, soybeans. Okay, they're a little shop and they make some they grow some vegetables. Gardeners would probably be more what I'd call them, but he got together with farmers and then they started to discuss the impacts of these cuts to the agricultural programs. I want to address this because what Donald Trump is cutting here, for a long time, agricultural programs have become something like a SNAP and food assistance, and that's not really helping out farmers, okay? That's helping out people who are too lazy a lot of times to go get a job and feed themselves. Like I said, healthcare and food, they are not, what would you call human rights, okay? If somebody else has to labor for it, if you could labor yourself for it, it is not a right you're entitled to. Healthcare is not a human right. You have to take care of yourself, right? And your health. You got to run. You got to eat the right foods. These are things that you can do. And even then, you might have some sort of genetic thing, come down with cancer, tragedy. And you got to stow away some money for those things that happen and be fiscally responsible for emergencies, right? It's tough. I'm not gonna lie to you. It's terrible, but you can't rely on the government for food and for your health. Okay, then we're getting into communist dictatorships, tyrants who are going to tell you what you can eat and what you have to do as far as your health. So Governor J.B. Pritzker, Nikki Budzinski, they were talking with farmers, and I'm using air quotes, and they were talking about the impacts of the cuts to agricultural programs. So I'm also using air quotes there. Okay, so after legislators ignored protections for the Mahomet Aquifer, this really gets me going and I'm very, very fired up this morning, okay? I am woke. Call me DEI because I have had so much coffee. But the legislators, this really peeps me off and I get real upset about this because this is, clean drinking water, basic infrastructure, public safety. This is things the government should be working on, but these legislators ignored protections for the Mahomet Aquifer a couple of years, like a year ago, okay, last year. Now they've got a new bill that would protect the water supply from carbon sequestration, and this bill is now advancing in the Illinois Statehouse, and I'm going to get to it. because I have to roll my eyes. People are now, they're like, oh, we have to protect the Mahomet Aquifer. You guys remember Catherine Metzger and Crystal Abel? They were like, yeah, we passed a resolution saying that we'd support bills that protect the Mahomet Aquifer from carbon sequestration. Okay, but Crystal, do you know who jeopardized it to begin with? It was Dave Kaler. He represents Central Illinois. Why the hell did he sponsor a bill? And don't give me this, oh, well, we didn't know that carbon sequestration would be bad for the aquifer at the time that Dave Kaler passed the bill. We didn't know about the ADM leaks or whatever. Don't give me that. Okay, don't give me that. All right, I'm going to get to that. But we also want to talk about this Washington State mayor. National news story. It's taken social media by storm. He completely annihilates, destroys this LGBTQ activist. My jaw dropped when I listened to this activist giving some sort of public comment at a city council meeting, and this LGBTQ activist actually compared the POW flag to the pride flag. Okay. And by pride flag, I mean like the LGBTQ flag, the rainbow flag. She compared it to the POW flag, and the Washington State mayor was not having it. We're going to get to all of it here on Conservative Cat. Go ahead, find me on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Rumble, and text me 309-451-9299. All right, let's get into it. The U.S. Department of Agriculture, they recently slashed $1 billion in federal funding for schools and food banks, okay? Interesting. I'm reading this and I'm like, wait a second. They slashed $1 billion in federal funding to schools and food banks. I'm not seeing where this impacts farmers at all. Okay, we're cutting funding for schools, which already get an exorbitant amount of funding. We know this, and we're cutting food assistance programs. Okay, so the state lawmaker, Chris Miller, State Representative Chris Miller, Republican, he's dismissing Governor J.B. Pritzker and Nikki Budzinski. They got together and they did this roundtable, and he's traveling the state to talk about the federal cuts to these programs, okay? Because Governor J.B. Pritzker is probably running for president in 2028, so he's doing a tour around the state. He's not going downstate, because if he were to go to downstate, the farmers would tell him exactly how they feel. But here's what Governor J.B. Pritzker said. We don't have what right now looks like $11 billion that we're going to be losing to the state of Illinois. We don't have $11 billion to fill in the gaps in education, healthcare. Cutting $11 billion just to, education, I think that would be, we're paying like way more per student than any other state. I mean, they think we're paying $22,000 per student. That's the average here in the state of Illinois. There's some students who get $100,000 per year towards their education and tax money, and it's just insane to me. But he says we don't have $11 billion to fill in the gaps, education, healthcare. Look, in healthcare, we're paying for state employees to be on Ozempic. I'm not kidding you. That's part of their state plan now. They get the Ozempic. You know how expensive Ozempic is? It's like $200 a week or something crazy like that. And we're paying for it as taxpayers. I think $11 billion would be fine if we cut it from the state budget. It's interesting. It's only ballooned. Our budget is ballooned under Governor J.B. Pritzker. Prior to Governor J.B. Pritzker, it was resting at a $30 billion-ish budget. Now it's like 55 billion or something like that. So it's like ballooned to 20 billion. So it's by 20 billion. So I think a cut of $11 billion, I think we're going to be okay. Okay, just since Governor J.B. Pritzker has been in office, it's ballooned by $20 billion anyway. So he goes, again, I want to remind everybody that the purpose of all of this, taking all of this federal money away, is to give big tax cuts to people who don't need them. Okay, says you literally gave a tax cut to your CCP buddies, Goshen, to the tune of $50 or $500 million or something like that, over $500 million. So I don't really want to hear it from you, Governor J.B. Pritzker. You literally gave through the Illinois Secure Choice program, which is this retirement program. You wrapped it up in a cute little bow and gifted it to BlackRock to be the asset managers of that retirement program. And they're taking out loans and money and building these big skyscraper type buildings. And they're leveraging the money that they've got through the Secure Choice program to secure these loans. They're the asset. You gave them a little gift with a bow, okay? And you said, be the asset managers of this massive secure choice retirement program. That's what this is all about. Anyway, Governor J.B. Pritzker, biggest culprit of giving tax cuts and money to his buddies and to his friends, okay? BlackRock, they contribute to Tides Foundation. We know that. And the Tides Foundation is Governor J.B. Pritzker's foundation. Well, the Pritzker Family Foundation. And really what this was giving them that job, the asset manager job here in the state of Illinois for this Illinois Secure Choice Program, that was a gift. It's a gift. It's a thank you. Thanks for contributing to the Tides Foundation. Thanks for your donation. That's essentially what that is. Governor J.B. Pritzker is the biggest culprit of giving tax cuts to his buddies and giving favors to his buddies. Okay, so I don't even really want to hear J.B. But anyway, the USDA, they cut the $1 billion that they're talking about. This is to like local food purchase assistance cooperative agreement program. It's the LFPA-CAP. I don't know. It's this program. Tracy Barkley, now she's with the Sola Gracia Farm. Look this up, Sola Gracia Farm. I looked them up on, the internet and looked at their website. They're not really mass producing anything. They're like gardeners, glorified gardeners, I would say. I know that's going to be controversial and people are going to be screaming at the sky when I say that. Just look it up, though. She said that was never part of the plan for the USDA to cut this local food purchase assistance. So really what this is, they give you money. The government gives you money so that way you can grow food to give it to food banks. Okay. She said farmers were hiring, investing, stretching, knowing that they could get to that next level with the government dollars, okay, to serve communities long term with good, healthy food. And then she says, quote, I know there have been layoffs and I know that people are not getting the food that they counted on. Look, if we don't have the money for these programs, and this is what people voted for, they voted for Elon Musk and Donald Trump to go in there and cut the waste. Okay, to be honest with you, really, who should be doing that kind of work? It's the churches. Okay, you pay a tithe to your church goes and donates to the local food bank and works at the local food bank, and they get the food and they can purchase the food. You don't need the government dollars to the food banks and to the people to make the food, to give to the food banks. You don't need all of that. Let the communities help each other. Don't let Big Daddy government come in and give all this money to people. And really what it's going towards, it's probably not even really going towards. And like she even admitted, we were hiring people. Okay, it's going towards hiring people to work at this farm. Okay, so it's not even really going to the food. It's not going to the long-term healthy communities and providing these communities with food. It's not even really going there. They were investing. They were building buildings. They were hiring people. This wasn't about giving food to the needy, okay, this program. And this is the program that was cut, okay? These are welfare programs, okay? And this isn't destroying farmers, okay? These are cutting welfare programs. Get up, get a job, go pay for your food. I don't know what else to tell you, okay? Former gubernatorial candidate Darren Bailey, he took aim at Governor J.B. Pritzker for, going around Illinois, and mainly he's focusing on northern Illinois, this tour. Why? Because, either he's going for 2026 gubernatorial race, okay, or he's going for 2028 and he's kind of touring the state, trying to secure votes for the potential presidential run in 2028. Either way, it's campaigning stops for him, okay? And he's focusing on northern Illinois. Here's what Darren Bailey said. Since you're traveling the state and you're excluding, or since when does traveling the state mean excluding everything south of Champaign? Come to the South. Tell us how great your ideas are. Tell us how, and we'll supply you farmers to tell you about these cuts to these programs. Because guess what? You're giving all of this money to these programs where, there's a lot of it, a lot of this is already being funded, okay, by Health and Human Services. Right now, I mean, the DOE, it's going to be cut. But the DOE is doing a lot of this, and largely the Department of Agriculture, they supply the SNAP program. So this is Supplement Nutrition Assistance Program. with dollars. I mean, that's what they're all about with the Department of Agriculture. And anytime you do that and you do these welfare programs and you prioritize these welfare programs, you are throwing away the farmer and casting aside the farmer. Okay, if you want to actually do something for the farmers, pull back the regulations. Okay, let them do their job. So here's what Governor J.B. Pritzker said. He reflected on the long-term consequences of funding cuts, noting that Illinois has seen some damages in the past. He goes, quote, "The damage that gets done during this year, and you've lost those dollars, it gets done sometimes permanently." We saw that. We had big programs here in the state of Illinois back in 2016, 2017. Unfortunately, Donald Trump has a whole history of breaching contracts when he was a business person. So, he's worried about this bureaucracy completely dismantling, and they've taken years to build up this bureaucracy where all these people are getting paid and they're not doing too much. Okay, they're not doing a whole lot. They're getting paid to do it. To do nothing. And they've built this bureaucracy up. And now, because Donald Trump and Elon Musk have come in and started to dismantle this thing, they're worried that it won't be built back up. Okay. I want to take a quick break, but we're going to come back. We're going to talk about this. And I do want to talk about the Mahomet Aquifer, because the Mahomet Aquifer, there's a bill that's protecting the Mahomet Aquifer now that's advancing. Who jeopardized the Mahomet Aquifer in the first place is that should be the question we're focusing on. I'll be right back. You're listening to Conservative Cat. Yeah, what how much is that accruing every single year? The unfunded liabilities accruing every single year, the pension liabilities. Yeah, it's the pension, stupid. That's why you're seeing a 1% sales tax, by the way, for the schools, is because the 1%, because the school districts and Barry Riley, who's heading up that PAC, they all know that there is this unfunded pension liability, and eventually we're going to have to answer to that. And they need to secure as much tax money as they can, because at some point this 10 trillion billion, I don't know, I think it's 1, 2, 3, yeah, $10 billion. I think that's what we're at. Unfunded pension liability. We've got to answer to that at some point, and that's why these school districts are trying to scare the 1% sales tax, because they know that eventually that's going to come to a head. That's something he has total control over. Yeah, we have so much debt. I mean, the budget deficit, like I said, it's ballooned from 33, a cut of $11 billion to the state of Illinois in federal funding, even if that number is correct, which I'd highly doubt that it is. But even if that number is correct, good. That's probably the best thing that we could do for the state of Illinois, because we ballooned from 30, it bounced around 33 billion or something like that before Governor J.B. Pritzker took office. Then it ballooned to 55 billion, which tells me that what we're doing is we're spending way too much on a lot of these welfare programs. Okay, SNAP and local food and things like that. The Health and Human Services, they have programs like that. The Department of Agriculture, pretty much almost every government agency does things like that. Welfare programs, okay? We already have SNAP. We already have link cards and things like that. So there's no reason why we should be duplicating it and giving people even more, okay? I know, and I'm sure you know, somebody who's sold link cards, SNAP cards, food assistance cards for cash. It's getting to a point where some of these people on these welfare programs are getting so much where they're, this isn't fulfilling a need. It's giving people an excess amount of tax dollars to go spend on food. And it's getting to a point where they don't need it. And what they're doing is they're selling these cards for cash. That's what goes on all the time. Okay, I'm sure you know somebody who does that, or you've heard of people who have done that before. And that's what winds up happening in a lot of these welfare programs, is you don't need it and you're selling it for cash, or you sell it for cash to go get drugs. Okay, so we just have an excess amount of these programs. The Department of Agriculture doesn't have to do it, and the Human Health Services doesn't do it. The DOE currently does it, where they give food assistance to children. I mean, if your kid is in school, okay, and is getting breakfast, lunch, and dinner, why the hell do you need like or I don't know how much of that 11 billion was for food assistance for the state of Illinois that were getting taken away from federal funding. But why the hell do you need billions in food assistance if they're already getting breakfast, lunch, and dinner at the public school? Like, what are you buying? You know what I mean? Like, if your kid is in school and they're getting breakfast, dinner, and lunch, and that's paid for through the DOE programs, okay, currently, and this is why Donald Trump is cutting that. The DOE, if they're getting that through the food assistance programs at school, why the hell are you also getting food assistance through the Department of Agriculture, through the Health and Human Services? Why are you getting it through all of these multiple agencies? It's abuse. Okay, it's abuse. It's your tax dollars not working for you. It should just be one program. Okay, one program, one agency is in charge of it, and we give SNAP to people who need it. Okay, and who can prove that need through an application. I don't know what's so damn complicated about that, but Governor J.B. Pritzker, he's calling for SNAP and conservation programs to be included in the Farm Bill. The Farm Bill has little to do with farming. This shouldn't shock you. For years now, it's like 85% focused on food assistance rather than supporting farmers. We should be supporting farmers with, I don't know, cheaper equipment, maybe equipment grants. If we want to do something like that, right? If we're helping out farmers, it should actually go towards helping out farmers. The Farm Bill should be farmer focused, right? Instead, it's welfare program focused. I don't even think SNAP and they should be included in the Department of Agriculture. It's kind of dumb. This should be more of a human health services, right? Program where they chip in and they provide this program, and they're the ones. I don't even know why it's included in the Department of Agriculture. The Department of Agriculture should be regulations and helping out farmers, perhaps with maybe like equipment grants or something like that if you were going to do something for farmers. Why the hell is a welfare program in there? And why the hell is the Farm Bill 85% of this, or the SNAP is 85% of the Farm Bill? It makes absolutely no sense. We're going to get to the Mahomet Aquifer. I get real passionate about that. Senate Bill 1289, largely sponsored by Democrats. That is what jeopardized originally the Mahomet Aquifer. And I feel like we've gotten away from that discussion. Who jeopardized it to begin with? Woo! Hey, good morning. You're listening to Conservative Cat. I am woke. I had so much coffee. Call me DEI because I am woke this morning. I'm up. I am up and at 'em. I got some coffee. I like this comment. When will Governor J.B. Pritzker start touring the state and addressing our unfunded liabilities? Pension liabilities. The reason why the sales tax is on your ballot this year and the election is only about a week away. The reason why it's on your ballot this year is because of the unfunded pension liability that we've got in the state. People know that their pension is not going to be there because the state is financially just screwed up so much. They know that their pensions aren't going to be there and they're not going to be able to collect exorbitant salaries anymore. And what they want to do is secure more tax money so their salaries and their pensions are saved. That is what the 1% sales tax is really all about, because they know there's an elephant in the room, and it's called unfunded pension liabilities. Governor J.B. Pritzker won't start touring the state, and I'm using air quotes here because he wasn't going downstate. He wasn't going south of Champaign, okay? He's staying up north, and it's probably because he's got a 2026 gubernatorial race coming up, or, he's getting a jump start on 2028 presidential run. But anyway, he's been touring the state talking about the cuts to the state of Illinois. He says $11 billion. Good. That's what I say. Good. It should be $11 billion because guess what, JB? Ever since you've come, it's been $20 billion. This is what this budget has ballooned to. It used to bounce around $30 billion, the state of Illinois. Now it's ballooned to like $55 billion. And we've got budget deficits out the wazoo. I think it's like a $3 billion budget deficit this year. So we're not even spending within our means. Okay, we're spending so much where we don't even have that money to spend. And it's called tax increases. How are we going to spend that money? We're going to tax you into oblivion. So Governor J.B. Pritzker, he talked about SNAP programs and conservation programs. So this is like green weenie programs, conservation programs, and SNAP programs. And all of that, he's calling for that to be included in the Farm Bill. And, the Farm Bill has largely been these programs, these welfare programs. And I don't know why the Department of Agriculture is in the business of welfare programs. I don't think that they should have anything to do with welfare programs. Any kind of food assistance, I feel like that should be the Human Health and Services, the DEO or the DOE, the Department of Education. They also do food assistance. I don't even know what the hell this SNAP card is for, because guess what? The DOE, they've got like breakfast, dinner, and lunch programs. Your kids are fed by the time they get home. Why the hell are you also getting SNAP benefits? You know what I mean? Like, your kids are fed by the time they get home. They're getting breakfast, dinner, and lunch at school. What are you doing with your SNAP card? Oh yeah, that's right. You're selling it for cash. So there isn't really a need for it. You're just taking my money that I'm giving to you in the form of tax dollars, and then you're turning around and selling this card because you really don't have a need for it. And, I'm not saying that we should get rid of the program in its entirety, but one, it shouldn't be controlled under the Department of Agriculture. The Department of Agriculture should be farming regulations, if we need some farming regulations, right? And it should be maybe equipment grants. If you really want to help out farmers, if you want to help out farmers, do some like equipment grants. But that's not what the Farm Bill is all about, and that's not what it's been for a large portion of its existence. The Farm Bill, it's largely been, and this is what Chris Miller said. He criticized the Farm Bill, claiming that 85% of it now focuses on food assistance rather than supporting farmers. Also, at this roundtable that Governor J.B. Pritzker had with Nikki Budzinski, they talked about, like I said earlier in the show, this little local food purchase assistance cooperative agreement. This was a program, and then Tracy Barkley, she's with the Sola Gracia Farm. And look that up on their website. Just look up their website. I think that'll explain a lot. She said it was never part of the plan that would end after a year, because farmers, they were hiring, they were investing in all of these buildings to provide, long-term, healthy, good food to communities. Right there, she admits it out loud. Okay, this wasn't really ever about providing healthy food to communities. This was about hiring more people on your farm and securing jobs, maybe giving people a little bonus, or upping their salaries. That's what this program is about. It's not really providing, and really, that is not the job of the government. I am of the firm belief that is to be, community-based, local. Your churches should be stepping up and providing dollars for food banks to secure food, okay, and to feed the poor, okay? I mean, that's really what this is really all about. And, yeah, we already have SNAP programs for people. Why the hell are we doing these local food assistance programs as well? We already have a food program. It's called SNAP. Anyway, so there was also this issue that Governor J.B. Pritzker, and this came up during the roundtable with Nikki Budzinski and these farmers, and I'm air quoting here because I think it's so funny. Chris Miller, he says, one of the things when you start to trim the pork, the pigs start to squeal. Okay. So that's what he says. He goes, these left-wing radicals are typically not farmers. Who Governor J.B. Pritzker, who's the people they select to put on these roundtables to talk about these federal funding cuts. These are usually left-wing radicals, and they're going to whine. Why? Because their jobs are being taken, okay, or they're being canceled because they're not needed. Okay, and he says, when you start to trim the pork, the pigs start to squeal. That's Representative Chris Miller, and that was a great quote. Now, Governor J.B. Pritzker at this roundtable also talked about agriculture workers, okay, undocumented agricultural workers. Governor J.B. Pritzker said he hasn't heard of any large-scale ICE actions targeting them, but he acknowledged that deportations are happening elsewhere. And, Chris Miller, this is interesting because I don't own like a big farm or anything like that, and I don't hire undocumented workers, but there's actually a process. And I looked into it a little bit. This is a really cool kind of thing where you get to hire migrant workers. They come and they work seasonally and then they go back home, and it's a process. It's a legal process for migrant workers, and they come and they're, undocumented. They work for you for a period of time. They obtain like temporary status to work on your farm, and then they go back home. There's actually a program that that's the process. I mean, you could also get a work visa. I mean, there's so many different legal processes for these migrant workers to come work on the farms. If they're really that concerned about agricultures and ice and just don't come here into this country illegally, period. All right. Let's talk about the Mahomet Aquifer. I get real passionate about this one, okay? Because securing clean drinking water, that is a basic duty, I would say, of government, basic infrastructure, okay, and making sure that it's safe. So that's your roads, your bridges, making sure that they're not falling all over the place, potholes everywhere, making sure that your water doesn't taste terrible. Okay, these are just basic things that the government should be doing. Libraries, downtown streetscapes, things like that. That's all want, not need. Okay, and your government should be basic infrastructure, public safety. So I get a little passionate about this. Legislators, they ignored protections for the Mahomet Aquifer. You've got Crystal Label, Catherine Metzger on the McLean County Board passing this resolution, which was really dumb. If you're on the McLean County Board, what you could do is pass a resolution banning carbon sequestration. They could have done it themselves, but instead they passed a resolution that was a feel-good resolution, and it was like, oh, we'll support any legislation that comes out of Springfield that protects the Mahomet Aquifer from carbon sequestration. We'll support that, and we'll pass a resolution saying we support that. Just pass a resolution yourselves that ban it. I mean, I don't know what's so hard about that. I think it's really funny. But as a new bill, Senate Bill 1723 would provide protections for the sole source aquifer. That's after, okay, and I can't highlight this enough, Senate Bill 1289, signed by the governor last year, put the aquifer in jeopardy in the first place, okay? And Andrew Wren, the Corning Center Square climate director of Prairie Rivers Network, said they wanted the protections last year, quote, but then we learned over the summer or early fall, about 2 weeks after the Archer Daniels Midland Decatur factory, okay, we learned that there was a leak, okay, and that kind of shook us up for a little bit, and it shook our faith in the Class 6 well program, which is the program that regulates these carbon sequestration projects, okay? So, and then on top of that, we learned of a new administration, a federal administration, and that is unlikely, and the federal administration is unlikely to enforce anything that looks like environment protection. My brain. Okay, so Archer Daniels Midland, okay, they had a couple of leaks after Senate Bill 1289 passed, okay? Senate Bill 1289 passed, and I want to be very clear about this. Republicans were screaming profanities, okay, on the floor at the time to make sure that this didn't pass without protections for the Mahomet Aquifer, okay? I remember very vividly Chapin Rose getting out there and screaming, hey, we need protections for the Mahomet Aquifer. These are dangerous. Multiple stakeholders came to the table and they said that carbon sequestration is dangerous for water supply. Look at the Satartia, Mississippi leaks that happened. We didn't need the ADM leak to say that carbon sequestration under aquifers is a bad idea, and under sole source water supplies is a bad idea. We didn't need that to happen, okay, in order for us to get this bill together and change our minds, okay? At the time of the passage of Senate Bill 1289, which was sponsored, by the way, and I'm going to blast them out here, okay? Write down this with a green crayon if you have to. Tom Bennett, Senator Tom Bennett, a Republican, and Senator Dave Kaler, they both represent the central to east central Illinois area where this aquifer is located. It's ginormous, by the way, the Mahomet Aquifer. Look up a map. They know, okay, they know that this was a bad idea, but they sponsored this anyway, this Senate Bill 1289, which jeopardized the Mahomet Aquifer in the first place. Okay, number one, Archer Daniels Midland facility, the leaks, it shouldn't really shock us. There was also a leak in Satartia, Mississippi with these carbon sequestration things, these carbon pipelines. It was just a matter of time, okay? So we all knew that carbon sequestration, especially under an aquifer, is dangerous. Okay, we didn't need the leaks to further tell us that, hey, the Class 6 well program that the program that regulates these is probably not all that great. Okay, and yeah, it's not going to help anything. You're putting compressed carbon in these pipes underneath the ground. They're going to leak. And it's just pseudoscience. It's just so bizarre that we want to do this in the first place because, one, you got to clean the emissions from these factories, and that emits carbon. So it's not carbon zero, like net emissions like are zero. That's not true. It creates carbon to do this. Number one, to clean the carbon and to shove it down into the ground, it emits even more carbon. Okay, so it's not green. We're storing it, and it's not really doing anything. Okay, storing this underground. Now, I do want to get to this. The new administration, that's what he says as well. He's a climate policy director, Andrew Wren. He says that the new administration is likely not going to enforce anything that looks like environmental protection. I don't know about that. President Donald Trump's Human Health Secretary, RFK Jr., was a very vocal critic of carbon capture and storage projects. Just 5 months ago, Kennedy released this explosive documentary. It's called The Pipeline Deception. And I'm going to get to that here in just a little bit, but I got to take a quick break. You're listening to Conservative Cat. Good morning, Kat and all. I appreciate you being here. Good morning, DEI. Call me DEI because I am woke this morning. We are going to get to the Mahomet Aquifer. Look, the Trump administration, I'm not too sure where he lines up. I'm going to drink some water here, folks. Yes, clean water. Unlike Bloomington's water and the Mahomet Aquifer, if there's a carbon pipeline that goes underneath it. But I want to talk about, this the Donald Trump administration and carbon sequestration. Okay. He was pro carbon sequestration in his first term. Like I said, there's multiple things that I don't like that Donald Trump has done. Now, if he does something like this where he continues to store carbon and is continuing to incentivize these projects, I am going to be very livid. Now, the only reason why he would probably be doing it, it's because Donald Trump doesn't buy into the whole green weenie crap with the, oh, it's good for the environment. He's not doing it because of that. What he'd be trying to do is take some of this carbon, and what it does is it can be used, the carbon, to push out every last drop of oil in these oil fields with the oil pipelines. Okay, so we can use carbon to push out every last drop of oil. Obviously, Donald Trump would be pro that because he's pro energy or pro domestic energy, okay, and creating energy. And he says, drill, baby, drill. He's referring to oils. And if it's proven that there is a lot of extra oil, every last drop of oil coming out of these pipelines, and if you can sequester carbon and push the carbon through and get that last drop of oil out, likely he's going to go for it. I hope he doesn't. We'll have to see. I'd be shocked if he does because of how outspoken RFK Jr. has been about this. And how outspoken the right has been about this. There's been a lot of people with especially eminent domain, using eminent domain for these private companies, by the way, which I can't believe that you can actually do. But there's a lot of people in North Dakota and Southern Illinois and these rural parts of the country who are very upset about, their land being used for this carbon sequestration, okay? Opponents of the project believe that the pipelines have a hidden purpose. The pipelines just happen to end at the Bakken crude oil fields in North Dakota and the fields of Southern Illinois. These are crude oil fields, so the CO2 can actually be used to push out every last drop. And I'm quoting Kennedy here from his documentary. It's called The Pipeline Deception. Can be used to push out every last drop of oil that's stranded in the oil fields. The purpose claimed for the pipeline by proponents is the reduce of carbon emissions, but in actuality, it could actually increase the amount of carbon emitted. Now, this is just interesting. I really don't think, because there's something called the 45Q repeal or 45Q tax credit. Okay, now this was created in 2005, and it shouldn't shock you, by George Bush. Okay. He's what you think of when these, big oil, big Texas oil and I've talked about this before, where you've got the people on the left, people on the right, and these are the establishment guys. Okay, so the left, it's all financing and bankers and things like that. Your Hillary Clintons. And then on the right, you've got your George Bushes, and they're all about the military industrial, your Nikki Haley's military industrial complex and big oil. Now, under Donald Trump's first administration, the 45Q tax credit was expanded. Okay, he did expand it, but pretty much every administration expanded it before him. George Bush, Barack Obama, they expanded the 45Q tax credit. This is a tax credit that you give to companies who use the carbon sequestration crap. Okay. Now, that is under attack currently by a staunch advocate of Donald Trump, okay, U.S. Representative Scott Perry in Pennsylvania. Okay, he introduced the 45Q Repeal Act, which would take away entirely this tax credit, which is a financial incentive for carbon capture and carbon dioxide, to capture carbon dioxide from the air or from industrial processes. So that's pollution from these factories, okay, and stored underground. So this 45 already we're seeing under this administration. Now, I don't know if this is a Donald Trump. He is a staunch advocate, Scott Perry. I don't know if he is doing this at the behest of Donald Trump, or if this is a broader Make America Great Again initiative. But Scott Perry, he's already got introduced legislation that gets rid of this and would effectively get rid of this, because if you don't incentivize it, people won't do it. Okay. Bottom line, and like, if you're not giving people money to do the carbon sequestration, they're not going to do it. It's expensive, it's hard to do. So they're not going to do it unless you give them money to do it. Okay. And this was really expanded under President Joe Biden. Okay. This is why I think it's so interesting when people say, oh, this new federal administration, they're not going to do anything, and they're probably going to get rid of your problem entirely. Okay. Which would be to end the carbon sequestration pipelines. He hasn't really talked about it yet, Donald Trump. So this is all kind of new. But if I was a betting woman, I'd bet that they get rid of the carbon sequestration pipelines in its entirety. All right, we're back. Woo! Hey, good morning. You're listening to Conservative Cat. Call me woke. Call me woke. Call me DEI. I'm as woke as DEI this morning because I got coffee. Woo! Have you got your coffee? We've been talking about the news. I do want to talk about this Senate Bill 1723. This is a new bill that would provide protections for the sole source aquifer. Likely, if you're listening to my show this morning, you're drinking from the Mahomet Aquifer, okay? Unless you live in Bloomington. But I'm sorry, you got the lake source water because, I don't know, we live in the Stone Ages. And you're still on lake source water. I don't know why they don't transition it. Later in the week, if you guys tune in, we're going to be talking with Ben Zimmerman. He's running for Bloomington City Council later in the week, and we're going to get to ask him these questions about the water and what his plans are, if elected, to address the water situation in Bloomington. But we've been talking about the Mahomet Aquifer and the Senate Bill 1723, and what this is going to do essentially is provide protections for the sole source aquifer, and it says, hey, don't drill these carbon sequestration, or don't go underneath these any sole source aquifer with carbon sequestration. And people are talking about like Senate Bill 1289. This is the catalyst here, okay? And I don't want to get away from that conversation. Who jeopardized it in the first place? This is the story, okay? It's your local representatives who were there, a part of the discussions. You had Dave Gaylor and Tom Bennett. So this is not, just Democrats. It was largely Democrat sponsored, this 1289 that jeopardized the Mahomet Aquifer. But he had a Republican who represents East Central Illinois, who also co-sponsored this. Okay, that's Tom Bennett. And we can't get away from the fact that that's what jeopardized the aquifer in the first place, and the fact that you had Republicans screaming profanity, saying that they wanted protections for the Mahomet Aquifer. And guess what? Governor J.B. Pritzker signed a bill, signed it into law, where they can build these carbon sequestration projects under sole source aquifers, under drinking water. Okay, it's dangerous if there's leaks. So they talked about ADM, the Decatur facility. After that bill had passed, there were a couple of leaks there at ADM with their carbon wells, their carbon sequestration wells. Yeah, I mean, it was just a matter of time okay, before those ADM wells leaked. Okay, it was just a matter of time. All right, we know that, and that is a poor justification for why all of a sudden we're focused on securing these protections. We should have secured them prior to this bill, the Senate Bill 23. We should have secured those protections in Senate Bill 1289, which jeopardized it in the first place. Anyway, so the new administration, the Trump administration, if I was a betting woman, I'd bet that this is going to stop. Carbon sequestration is going to stop. Now, I don't know. Obviously, RFK Jr. has been a very outspoken critic of the carbon capture and storage projects. He actually made this documentary. It's called The Pipeline Deception. Now, here's what he says in the documentary, RFK Jr. Okay, he says, opponents of these projects believe the pipelines have a hidden purpose. The pipelines just happen to end at the Bakken crude oil fields in North Dakota and the oil fields in southern Illinois. This is what Kennedy said in the documentary. So the CO2 can actually be used to push out every last drop of oil that's stranded out in these oil fields. And the purpose claimed for the pipelines, actually by proponents, is to reduce carbon emissions. But in reality, it's actually going to increase carbon emitted. Not to mention, if you're like, what is it? These ethanol plants, you've got emissions. You got to clean the emissions. You got to take all of the other stuff out of there. That what else is emitted besides the carbon? You got to clean that, and then you got to put the carbon underneath the ground. And that process also emits carbon. So, I mean, it's going to be terrible for these things are terrible for the planet. Now, Donald Trump, we know that he's like, drill, baby, drill, baby, drill, and he wants the domestic energy protection, okay? Yes, pro that, 100%. And I wouldn't even be totally against these carbon sequestration projects trying to squeeze out these little bit of oil in these oil fields if they weren't so dang dangerous, okay? Now, I don't know. Under Donald Trump, he was pro, obviously, the 45Q tax credit during his first, and like I said, I will be critical of Donald Trump. Okay, I'm not so blind to where I can't criticize Donald Trump in his first administration in 2016, and it was actually in 2018 when this was expanded, the 45Q tax credit. We're going to take a quick break, but I'm going to explain that here. On the other side, you're listening to Conservative Cat. Okay. Smash that like button, share this out with your friends, subscribe to the channel. We are going to be back talking a little bit more about that. I promise you, I'm going to get done. I'm going to be done with this. And then we are going to get to this prisoner of war flag being compared to the pride flag. Okay. So, under the guise of being extremely tolerant and inclusive, one leftist went to Washington State City Council and implied that flying the prisoner of war flag during June is nothing but a political stunt. And that comment should totally be condemned, according to the mayor. The mayor said what needed to be said at this meeting, and I'm going to applaud this Washington State mayor because he said what needed to be said. And his name, Newcastle, okay, Washington State Mayor, Newcastle Mayor Robert Clark was berated by activists during a public hearing. And this is about 12 miles from Seattle, okay? Citizens of the city about 12 miles from Seattle. And they were upset because the council decided to fly prisoner of war flags from City Hall during Pride Month. Okay, so they're not flying a gay pride flag. Okay, they're flying a POW-MIA flag. So we're going to get to that story, but there's so much I want to get to, folks. I'm so excited. 2028 Democrat front runner. Okay, so I don't know if they're going to run her for president or what, but she is definitely taking some sort of leadership role. Let me take a sip of coffee. Hold on. Okay, so I don't know if she's going to run for 2028 presidential run, but she's definitely being thrown out there as a Democratic leader. And she told, like, at a Bernie rally, she was talking about free speech. And I think that's so interesting because AOC, we have the receipts. You are anti-free speech, and I have the receipts to prove it. I also want to get to Tampon Tim this morning. Love Tampon Tim. Love talking about Tampon Tim. And he seems to be everywhere lately. I think it's because he's running in 2028, which is going to be hilarious. Please run in 2028. I would love the content coming out of that. But Trump is, of course, shutting down the Department of Education. And he's saying that because Donald Trump is going to shut down the Department of Education, that is ultimately going to lead to the segregation of schools. What the hell? Really? Like, what? How did you get there? Okay, so the Department of Education, they do look into civil rights complaints. Okay, there's multiple instances where actually those on the right have lodged civil rights complaints with the Department of Education after universities or high schools they discriminate against white people. For scholarships and programs and things like that that the school offers, or field trips, right? There's been multiple instances where people have lodged complaints with the Department of Education saying that their civil rights were violated in school, in like an education setting. Okay, now those complaints can easily just be transferred over to the Human Health Services. Okay, they investigate. So what happens with civil rights complaints that don't happen in an education setting? Who investigates those? Now, if there's a crime being committed, right? If it's like some sort of hate crime, the DOJ takes that kind of stuff over. If you're, beating people up, or if this is like a multifaceted, like where it's somebody is targeting individuals of a specific race and hurting them, that goes to the FBI, DOJ, right? If it's criminal. Now, if it's like civil rights and your civil rights were violated, for example, like DEI programs, you're not allowed, if you're white, to go on a field trip or something in a high school. Those could easily just be gone or go over to the Health and Human Services. They investigate civil rights. They actually have an office dedicated to investigating civil rights violations. Woo! Hey, good morning. You're listening to Conservative Cat Cities 92.9. I will criticize Donald Trump. I definitely will. There's definitely been things that he's done that I don't like. For example, the DACA recipients, at some points in time, he talks about giving them amnesty. I think that's garbage. I think that DACA was unconstitutional. It's an unconstitutional program, and we don't want to validate the unconstitutionality of the program DACA, a deferred action childhood arrival status. We don't want to validate that program that Barack Obama had set up by giving these people amnesty. We don't want to do that. It's a terrible precedent. So there's things that Donald Trump has done that I don't like. This would be one of those. In 2018, he expanded the 2018, or in 2018, it's called the 45, or what is it? Hold on. The 45Q tax credit. Okay, so 45Q tax credit, this is the credit that offers financial incentive for companies to do this carbon capture stuff. Okay, take carbon from the air, take carbon from their industrial processes, so their emissions, their pollution, take it from there and then store it underground. Okay, now I think it's interesting. You've got climate policy, Director Andrew Rain. He talks about this new administration and how they're unlikely going to enforce anything that looks like environmental protection. I'd counter with that, say RFK Jr., he made an entire documentary 5 months ago that talks about the pipeline deception. And he's been an outspoken, vocal critic of this. If he has anything to do with it, these pipelines are going to be done. Okay. And I don't know if Donald Trump, this is a totally different Trump administration, by the way. He's done things that I am just so impressed by. Donald Trump, I don't know. I don't have a glass ball or a crystal ball. I can't see into the future. But I'm going to tell you why I think that these pipelines are just going to go away under the Trump administration. Here next on Conservative Cat Cities 92.9. Good morning. Smash that like button, share this out with your friends. Like I said, there is Scott Perry. Scott Perry, known staunch advocate or staunch supporter of Donald Trump. Now, I don't know if he's brought this forward at the behest of Donald Trump. Who knows? Or as part of the Make America Great Again initiative. But Congressman Scott Perry he's a MAGA guy, okay, and he's already introduced a repeal of the 45Q tax credit. So I don't really think that this is going to be a thing anymore, the carbon sequestrations, because if you don't incentivize it, they're going to go away. The Mahomet Aquifer, key source of drinking water for many communities. Like I said, Senate Bill 1289, largely supported by Democrats. Democrats like Dave Kaler, who jeopardized your clean drinking water. Don't forget that, okay? Tom Bennett, also. Okay, I don't know when he's up for re-election, but when these people go up for re-election, remember, if anything, remember Kat told you on the radio that these people sponsored legislation to jeopardize your clean water, okay? I mean, and they don't care if it's unsafe, you know? And on this show, Republican, Democrat, we don't care. Okay, really, I'm more about conservative principles than anything else. And I told you, the left, the Clintons, the Clintons of the world, they're pro banker, pro finance, the finance industry. BlackRock, right? That's Governor J.B. Pritzker. Earlier in the show, we talked about how he awarded them the job, really, of asset managers of the Secure Choice program here in Illinois. That's the retirement program. They're pro big bankers, okay, the people on the left, these Democrats. And then you've got your people on the right who pro industrial military industrial complex, Boeing, right? Nikki Haley serving on, I think it was the board of Boeing, something like that. Anyway, let me double check that. Fact check me. But you've got military industrial complex and big oil, so your Bushes of the world, okay? Yeah, board of Boeing. Yep. So there you go. Boeing, they make, I don't know, planes or whatever for the military and whatnot. And she serves on the board of Boeing. And yeah, so they're big oil, military, industrial complex Republicans, okay, who don't really care about you. They just care about who they're beholden to, which are, on the left, it's these bankers. On the right, it's the military industrial complex. And but I think that there is a faction within the right who is anti a lot of this stuff and is just pro America and just pro taxpayer. Okay, so we want to talk about Donald Trump and how he might want to squeeze the last bit of oil out of these oil fields because he's been so energy. We want to be energy dependent, which I am all for 100%. And I wouldn't be against squeezing the last bit of oil out of these fields if it wasn't so damn dangerous, right? With this carbon sequestration, these things can leak, they can burst. We saw it in Satartia, Mississippi. It is not a good idea. And the green weenies, they'll pitch it as like, oh, this is good for the environment. Actually, it's terrible for the environment, which is so funny. So it just goes to show you that there's people on both sides of the aisle, left and right, who aren't really interested in you in protecting your drinking water and protecting your health or anything like that, and they would put that all in jeopardy just to get a big old pat on the back from who they're beholden to, okay, or who they're obligated to. So, I think it's kind of interesting. People will say, oh, it came together last minute, some fast negotiations. There weren't really Mahomet legislators in the room, when this 1289 passed. Not true. You have Dave Kaler and Tom Bennett. They were in the room. They sponsored the legislation. Okay, so we know that they live in the area. They know how important the Mahomet Aquifer is. They have to know, right? They know that, I in Lincoln, we're Mahomet Aquifer people. That's where we rely on our water. Normal. There's all kinds of areas. Bloomington, not so much. They rely on the lake source. So anyway, Chapin Rose used profanities on the Senate floor when opposing 1289 last year. Okay, went so far as to yell, okay, about protecting the Mahomet Aquifer. So I don't care how fast it was, because it was kind of fast. They gutted a bill. They did it fast. They tried to ram it through. Okay. But that doesn't mean that people didn't know what was going on. You had Jabin Rose up there saying that, hey, this is dangerous. We need to protect Mahomet Aquifer. He used profanities on the Senate floor saying, hey, we need to protect this. And people ignored that. Okay. It was ignored. Carbon sequestration. I don't know if it's going to be halted under the new Trump administration, if RFK has anything to do with it. Yes. Donald Trump, I don't know. We're dealing with a brand new Donald Trump here. He is gutting thing. He is on a Make America Great Again mission. Okay. He ran on that in 2016, but there were things that he did with, like this 45Q tax credit. He expanded it in 2018. Didn't get rid of it. And I'll tell you why here in just a second, but smash that like button, share this out with your friends, and subscribe. Welcome to the Red Kingdom. Hey, you're listening to Conservative Cat City's 92.9 The News and Talk Bloomington Normal. We're talking about the Mahomet Aquifer. Most likely, if you're listening to this program, you're drinking Mahomet Aquifer water maybe right now. Maybe you're drinking some coffee. It's got Mahomet Aquifer water in it. Bloomington, sorry, you're on lake source water because, I don't know, you live in the Stone Ages or something, and your current city councilman and your city councilman for the last 20 years and your mayors for the last 20 years have decided that they are going to live in the Stone Ages and just keep you on the lake source water, although it's been proven to be a problem for multiple years. Anyway, you can always find me YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Rumble. I did want to talk about, there's things that Donald Trump has done where I don't like. There's a couple of things that he's done that I don't like. Bump stocks, right? That was a big one. Also, DACA, saying things like publicly that he wants to grant amnesty to these people. I don't like that at all. Even maybe a little bit of IVF, but he's kind of going about it in a way that's much better than the Democrats would go about it. Tax credits, things like that, whereas the Democrats, they want to, make it a human right and demand that insurers pay for IVF. Donald Trump is trying to make it to where you've got a little bit more money to go do IVF treatment. Okay. So there's multiple things that I don't like about Donald Trump. This is one of them. Okay. The 45Q tax credit was expanded under the Trump administration. Now, Andrew Rain, he's climate policy director for the Prairie Rivers Network. Okay. He, suggested that under the Trump administration, there's not going to be a whole lot of environmental protections going on. Now, as it pertains to this carbon sequestration stuff. Okay, so he's pushing for a bill. He's supportive of a bill right now that is advancing, and it's called Senate Bill 1723. And basically, what this bill does, it makes sure that you can't drill or you can't put carbon pipelines underneath the Mahomet Aquifer, and it protects the sole source aquifer. Don't forget, if you remember anything today, remember this: Tom Bennett, a Republican, and Dave Kaler, Democrat. This was a largely Democrat-sponsored bill, 1289. They sponsored this bill. And what this does, it jeopardizes your health and it jeopardizes your water. Okay. And they did this full knowing. They knew full well. Okay. Because how do I know they knew? Well, Chapin Rose, he's a Republican from Mahomet. He used profanities on the Senate floor and tried to urge his colleagues to oppose Senate Bill 1289. There were definitely stakeholders who said that this is dangerous. Mississippi, Satartia, Mississippi, there was a leak there where people were, the cars, they couldn't get EMS out to people who were fainting because of the carbon, the exposure to carbon dioxide, right? If you were to, garage, leave your exhaust on, and shut the door, right, you're gonna die. Okay, so it was the same concept here, just at a much larger scale. And like the cars, they stopped working EMS. They couldn't get anywhere. They had the four-wheelers and they were trying to pick up bodies of people who had fainted because of this leak in Satartia, Mississippi. They get the four-wheelers to start back up. Okay, so Donald Trump, the 45Q tax credit, he expanded it in 2018. This is a totally different animal we're working with here, Donald Trump, in 2024 or 2025. We're working with a totally different administration. He is going after the DOE. He's going after everything. So already there has been somebody who's introduced a bill that goes after the 45Q tax credit, and that's Scott Perry. So we look at this, and Scott Perry is a staunch advocate of or a staunch supporter of Donald Trump. He's a Republican from Pennsylvania. I highly doubt that Donald Trump doesn't know about this. Okay, this bill. I'd be surprised if this isn't a MAGA initiative. Maybe Scott Perry filed this at the behest of the Trump administration, and this is something that the Trump administration is totally for. What this does, it takes away the 45Q tax credit. The tax credit, this is the financial incentives for companies to do the carbon capture, the carbon dioxide, where they capture it from the air and put it underground. If you de-incentivize it, people won't do it. So this is going to, if this gets passed, and we are in a current federal government, like it's House, Senate, right? Majority, Republican majority. This is Republican introduced legislation. I highly doubt the 45Q tax credit is going to be a thing anymore. And that's awesome. We don't want to incentivize people to do the carbon sequestration. Now, here's the thing. And Andrew Wren, he says this, he thinks that carbon capture, or I was asked, according to Center Square, if he thinks carbon capture will be halted under the new Trump administration. Here's what he says. He goes, it's unwise to predict anything to come out of the Trump administration. But it does seem like right now they're not going to touch the 45Q tax credit. Well, they are. Scott Perry has already introduced a bill that repeals it. At least the House is interested in getting rid of it. And I don't know if necessarily Donald Trump is interested in getting rid of it, but which incentivizes all of this sequestration. Andrew Rain goes on. He says, so all of these projects are still in the queue. I could even see a world where this gets accelerated by the Trump administration, because a lot of these projects that big companies like British Petroleum support, so a lot of these projects are supported by British Petroleum and other big companies. So people in the Trump administration like these projects. So what we're talking about here, and what RFK Jr. said in his Pipeline Deception documentary, is they're using these pipelines. And Donald Trump, if he's pro-carbon sequestration, it's not because of the green weenie reasons, taking carbon out of the air and it's healthy or whatever, and it's saving the planet, right? That's the dumb. What he's all about is using that carbon and squeezing the oil fields for that last drop of oil, and you can use the carbon to push that out. And I think it's interesting, RFK Jr., he talks about at the end, these pipelines all happen to end at this Bakken crude oil field, okay, in North Dakota and in the oil fields of Southern Illinois. So that's interesting. That's probably what they're trying to do at the end of the day. And that's why Republicans are pro this as well. You'll see Tom Bennett. You'll also see, I'm sure at a federal level, that your Nikki Haley's. George Bush was actually the one who created the 45Q tax credit, okay, in 2005, something like that. So he's not about the climate agenda, right? Donald Trump, he's going to be all about domestic energy. Okay, can we produce even more of it with this carbon sequestration? Now, I see a world where Donald Trump will do that, but I also see a world where this is a totally different administration, totally different animal we're working with here. We're working with a revenge Donald Trump. Okay, so he's done with the Republican establishment, with the big oil military industrial complex, George Bush's. He's done with that. He's done with the left. He's done with the Hillary Clintons, the Governor J.B. Pritzkers, who are pro-bankers and BlackRock and all of that. He's done with all of them, and he's coming in and he's doing something totally different, which is very exciting for you and I, because it's pro-American. It's pro-taxpayer. And getting rid of these are obviously pro-American, because we want to live, right? We don't want to die. We don't want carbon to be leaked out out of these pipelines and jeopardize our drinking water and our health. So I don't know. It's going to be interesting, but I think it's interesting that you have people on the left who completely ignore that the 45Q tax credit was expanded, okay, as part of Joe Biden's tripled, doubled. The whole carbon sequestration thing, really, it's an effort of Joe Biden. They've had it since 2005, where we incentivize companies to do this, but it just really became a behemoth under Joe Biden, because he really expanded this tax credit, which means you get a ton of money if you do these carbon sequestration projects. So really, it's Joe Biden who did these carbon sequestration projects and incentivized this as a broader climate agenda. Which, come on, we know that that's not the real reason why, because they're terrible for the environment, the carbon sequestration. Anyway, so and basically, this bill is advancing. I don't want you to forget. I really, really don't want you to forget that the guy who did this was Dave Kaler, and he represents the Mahomet Aquifer area. Okay, Tom Bennett, he represents Eastern Central Illinois. Like, I don't let these people distract you from the true story, which is that they jeopardized your water and they don't give a dang about you. They don't care about you. And you guys shouldn't keep electing them. All right, I gotta let's shift gears here. I want to talk about this Washington State City Council prisoner of war flag. This is really interesting, and I like this guy a lot. This mayor, I can already tell that I like him. But this woman, she's an LGBTQ activist. She goes and she talks at the city council, and she compares the POW. And says the POW flag is nothing but a political stunt because they're going to be flying the POW flag, the city at City Hall. They're going to be flying it during the month of June, and she wants the LGBTQ flag. Okay, now. This comment should totally be condemned. Comparing the POW MIA flag, you are not forgotten, right? You know what the flag looks like. Comparing that to the pride flag is just absolutely ridiculous, and saying that it's a political stunt to fly that flag is just so wrong. And the mayor said what needed to be said here.
My research shows that there's been 82,000 Americans who are registered as POWs or MIAs, which is atrocious and horrible, and it should never happen to any American. But there's 20 million minimum LGBTQ members. So when we're talking about special interest, let's just have some intellectual integrity. I've talked before about the hypocrisy of some of the people up on that dais, and I think that your approach to trying to trick people out of having to fly the pride flag in June by making sure that the POW MIA flag was flown is really disgusting. And again, it's not impartial in any way. And I think that you should be ashamed. I definitely am. Thank you.
It's not common that I respond to public comment, but I will not sit here and have somebody tell me that veterans are a political stunt. How dare you? This country was founded because veterans lost their lives. Hundreds of thousands of people died for this country so that you could fly your pride flag. And man, I am pissed. I'm sorry. This is out of line, and perhaps my council members will censure me for this, but do not ever disparage veterans in my presence, right? Those 82,000 people who never came home will never have a chance to have a family or grow up. While you can fly your pride flag, they sacrifice their lives all over the world for America and for freedom around the world. I tolerate your comments, which are always on the attack, and all in your libelous comments on Facebook. I tolerate it because, you know, you probably can't help yourself, but don't ever disparage veterans in front of me. Don't ever disparage veterans in front of me, and we're done.
Wow. All right. So that was Newcastle Mayor. His name's Robert Clark. He was berated by these activists at this hearing. And this is a city about 12 miles from Seattle. It's called Newcastle. And they were upset because the council had made the decision to stop flying the pride flag. And this month, or in the month of June this year, they're going to be flying the POW flag. So toward the end of the 3-hour session, an activist stood up in front of the council and called Clark disgusting and claimed that he and some of the elected officials were trying to trick people out of believing that the pride flag can't be flown by flying a POW and MIA flag. Totally ridiculous. Well, number one, the pride flag is absolutely disgusting, and here's why. It was stolen from Christians. The rainbow was stolen from Christians and Christianity and polluted. And that's what the LGBTQ activists have done. They've taken the flag from Christianity, or they've taken the rainbow. The rainbow is biblical. Okay, it's a sign of a new covenant after Noah and Noah the Ark and the massive flood. Okay, so they took the flag and they used it for their perversion, and they've perverted the rainbow. Okay, so number one, that's disgusting. So these activists, they make up things for the sole reason of trying to be the victim and attempting to remain the victim. However, given that these people were supposedly born that way, and given that the POW flag is intended to represent people who sacrifice their lives for this country, one can conclude that the former praises people for insignificant birth traits. Okay, so flying the pride flag praises people for insignificant birth traits. Okay, people are claim that they're born this way. Why are we praising people and being proud about people and their insignificant birth traits? In the latter, the POW flag, that actually honors courage, bravery, and it's a courage and bravery that I don't think any of these activists could ever portray. And the left thinks affirming one's indescribable feelings is somehow brave, despite lacking any kind of accomplishment. Okay, there's nothing you haven't accomplished anything by being LGBTQ. Okay, you claim that you were born this way, so this is not an accomplishment at all. It's your birth trait. It's like your hair color or your eyes, or right. So why do you want praise? Why do you want people to affirm that? Anyway, so the mayor said what needed to be said, that this was disgusting, and good for him. It's disgusting that they can't comprehend how the reason they can go up and speak about the pride flag, despite being morally, factually, and logically correct. Okay, they're not. They're incorrect. It's due to the people in the POW, people the POW flag represents. The whole reason why you can get up there and talk is because of those 82,000 Americans registered as POOs or MIAs, is what she gave the statistic there. Those people are the reason why you can go do this right now. Okay, so in their eyes, this is nothing more than a political stunt, and also according to the left, glorifying the pride flag is the morally superior thing to do, which doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. It's like, what's next? Are we going to fly a flag for people with brown hair? Are we going to fly a flag for people with brown eyes? Like, it's so ridiculous. And they want to glorify the pride flag, and they think that that's the moral superior thing to do. But I mean, come on, this is just evil. The end goal here is just evil. And she says this, quote, 82,000 Americans were registered as POWs and MIAs, and there's 20 million minimum LGBTQ members. This is what the activist said, quote, I've talked about the hypocrisy, and I think that your approach to trying to trick people out of having to fly the pride flag in June is making sure that the POW MIA flag was flown is really disgusting. So she's just disparaging veterans here, and he wasn't having it, the mayor. So there is no obligation, by the way, for local government to fly any kind of flag. Okay, really, they should be focused on basic infrastructure and public safety. That's it. That's all local government should really be in the business of. They're not really obligated to fly any flag. So she goes, not having to fly the pride flag. They're not obligated to do that. They're not even really obligated to do the WMIA flag. They're just doing that because it's a morally good thing to do, is to, honor those who have lost their lives, and prisoners of war, those 82,000 Americans registered as POWs or MIAs. So just because it's currently trendy to identify with insignificant birth traits does not mean that those people deserve to be honored in any kind of way. Just because of your sexual orientation and what you prefer in the bedroom, it doesn't give you the right, okay, or it doesn't make you deserving of honor, okay, and being honored, okay. She defends this, and she says, "Oh, I'm ashamed of you, right? You can't make this level of delusion up." So I got to take a quick break, but we're going to come back. I want to talk about AOC. They're throwing her out there as the leader of the Democrat Party. Her and I don't know. You got Rashida Tlaib. You got your Jasmine Crockett's. They are really searching for somebody in the Democrat Party to lead this party, and I don't know. They've got poor options. AOC, she screams at this Bernie rally that she's pro-free speech, but honey, AOC baby. I've got the receipts. You are anti-free speech. You hate free speech. Okay. And I've got the receipts and I'm going to share those with you. Also, Tampon Tim's back. And I'm for it. I love Tampon Tim content. I love talking about Tampon Tim. Donald Trump, he's shutting down the DOE, okay? And somehow Tampon Tim has jumped to the conclusion that that's ultimately going to lead to the segregating of schools, which is hilarious. I'm going to be right back. You're listening to Conservative Cat Cities 92.9. Hey, go ahead, smash that like button, share this out with your friends, subscribe to the channel. Where is the baby maker pride flag? Yeah, where's the straight pride, right? It's silly. It's silly to, have a flag, and not to mention they've taken they've glorified sin, and I don't hate gay people. I don't hate LGBTQ people. I hate the sin, right? Much like anything else, murder, stealing, whatever, right? Hate the sin at the center, right? So, why are they so mentally challenged? So they've taken the flag, by the way, from Christians, or they've taken this rainbow, the concept of the rainbow away from Christians. This is a new covenant, and the whole reason why Noah and the ark, happened in the flood, it was because of the sinful, depraved nature, Sodom and Gomorrah, right? Things like homosexuality and things like that were going on, and they've taken it and pretty much are trying to meme on Christians. Okay, that's really what the pride flag is all about, and rainbow is all about. They're trying to meme on the Christians, which is just gross and disgusting and offensive. Like, come up with your own thing, right? If you go be prideful about your insignificant birth traits, since you claim that you're born this way, right? Go be prideful about your insignificant birth trait or what you prefer in the bedroom, and find your own symbol. Okay, why take and pervert the symbol out of Christianity? It's because they know exactly what they're doing. Okay, it's evil at work. And I'm not going to say evil people at work, but it's evil at work through these people, where they take this symbol of Christianity, the rainbow, and they pervert it for their own self-serving interests, because they know the Bible better than anyone. Okay, they know the Bible too, and they're just going to take things out of it and pervert it and use it for their own gain. So anyway, the rainbow, that's a Christian symbol. Okay, there was a rainbow after the ark, after the flood, and they've taken that rainbow, that symbol, and they've slapped it on a flag, and they're celebrating. Really what it is sin, right? And I would say the same thing about any other sin. I don't hate the sinner, hate the sin. Anyway, so you're not obligated in any way at City Hall to honor anybody for any reason. They've chosen to fly the POW flag because they believe that those people are deserving of honor. Your insignificant birth traits, because you claim you're born that way, or your sexual orientation is not really deserving of honor. How do I know that? Well, just like you said, we don't have straight flags. We don't have straight pride flags. We don't have flags that honor people with brown hair or blue eyes or anything else. Okay. We don't have things like that. And yeah, so absolutely ridiculous. 100% correct. This guy, he says, it's not common that I respond to public comment. So this is awesome. He goes, but I'm not going to sit here and let you tell me that celebrating our veterans is a political stunt. How dare you? He says this country was founded because veterans lost their lives. Hundreds of thousands of people died for this country. So you could fly your pride flag. Man, I'm pissed. That's what he says. The mayor here, and this is like a little town out of Seattle, or city out of Seattle, like 12 miles from Seattle. So a couple of things here. Number one, Jesus, right? Your sacrificial, it's for your spiritual freedom. Okay, he sacrificed his life so you could have spiritual freedom and eternal life in heaven with the Father. Okay, so that's Jesus. Right, I would say, next would be to people who sacrifice their lives. Well, actually, it's the saints who sacrifice their lives in the name of the faith. People who die in countries who, profess Jesus and are willing to profess Jesus despite the risk of death. Those individuals are actually called saints. All Saints Day, which is November 1st, by the way. they talk about, those people who sacrifice their life, but right after them, it's the people who sacrifice for your not spiritual freedom, but your earthly freedom. Okay, your freedom in this country to go and speak before your council members and not die. Okay, your freedom in this country to do whatever you want at your house, in your bedroom, and to talk to who you want to be friends with who you want to be friends with, to eat whatever you want, to do whatever you want during your day. Okay, work wherever you want. So your earthly freedom was bought and paid for by somebody's blood. Okay, and your spiritual freedom was bought and paid for by Jesus. So, yeah, it's 100% correct that this is something people can never comprehend. They're so blinded by their deranged ideology. They can't comprehend the importance of somebody's sacrifice, like quite literally spilling blood for your freedom. Why? It's because they don't even respect their spiritual freedom that was given to them for the blood that was shed there. So yeah, that's that. I'm going to be right back. Hold on. Woohoo! Call me woke, call me DEI. Might as well call me DEI because I am drinking some coffee and I am awake. I am telling you, I got so much news to cover. And before we took the break, I was telling you a little bit about this guy. He's 12 miles out of Seattle. Newcastle is his name. Or Newcastle is the city in which he is the mayor of, and his name is Robert Clark. And, this is a quote from him. He goes, usually I don't respond to public comment, but I'm not going to sit here and let somebody tell me that, us celebrating veterans is a political stunt. And he goes, this country is founded on veterans who lost their lives. Hundreds of thousands of people died for this country. So you could fly your pride flag and come here and talk to me about the pride flag. So there's a reason why leftists can't really comprehend this idea. Because one, their deranged ideology just consumes their thoughts. Number two, a lot of these people are very upset with God. I won't even call them atheists. They're mad at God for whatever reason. And because of that, they don't really understand, the concept here of somebody dying and giving you freedom. Okay, so Christians, they understand the concept of somebody dying that in exchange provides you freedom. Okay, so Jesus, he gives you your spiritual, through the belief of Jesus and making him Lord and Savior, you're provided a spiritual freedom, which means when you die, eternal life with the Father. Okay, and you are free from a depraved spirit once you've accepted Jesus right into your heart and life. Okay, so there is a spiritual freedom bought and paid for by Jesus. Next to that, you've got Christians, saints who die in the name of the faith, knowing that they're going to die. They say, I don't care, I'm going to profess Jesus anyway. They die in the name of the faith. So that way you can continue to have your faith, right, and your religious freedom. I'd say that they're pretty close to Jesus there, and that they're saints, right? There also is somebody who is spilling blood and giving up their life for your earthly freedom, okay, for your country, the country's freedom. Okay, so they can't comprehend this idea, and it's their fault, but they don't understand the spiritual freedom, right, that was given to you through the blood of Jesus Christ. They don't understand that concept at all. And without that concept, it's kind of hard to understand how important veterans are, and this death that happens, these 82,000 registered POWs and MIAs. They don't understand how important that is, because, they die so that way you can have this earthly freedom to go and eat what you want, to go work where you want, to do whatever you want in your bedroom, to have the house you want, right? You're able to do all of that here on earth because of this blood that was spilled. So they can't really comprehend that. But anyway, this guy, the mayor, should not be ashamed of his comments. It's the only person who should be ashamed of their comments is that LGBTQ activist, not the mayor. All right, I do want to get to a few things this morning. Let's get to Boston mayor, I guess. The Boston mayor. So this, she's, talking about sanctuary state policies, and she's committed to the sanctuary state policies. And this is the Boston mayor, Michelle Wu is her name. She doubled down on this promise of a sanctuary state, although it puts all kinds of Americans at risk, right? Being a sanctuary state. You're disregarding federal immigration laws, despite how many Americans that puts at risk, by the way. And the federal government is currently committed to deporting criminal aliens. So on top of the crime of entering the country through an illegal port of entry, you've also committed crimes. And, Boston, well, this is what the mayor says. I'm going to pull this up here. A little bit later, we are going to be talking about AOC because I guess she's the leader of the party now. The 2028 Democrat frontrunner, Representative AOC. Gosh, this is going to be shape up for one heck of an election. I'm telling you, in 2028, we've got AOC, Tim Walz, Jasmine Crockett, maybe, I don't know. But AOC, she was at a Bernie rally and she talks about freedom or free speech. This is the most anti-free speech person probably on the planet, and I've got the receipts to prove it. But let's take a listen to the Boston mayor here first. This is Michelle Wu doubling down on this promise at a sanctuary city. Okay, so sanctuary state policies, sanctuary city policies here.
We stand with immigrants. You belong here. Somos una ciudad de inmigrantes. Boston doesn't back down. We are a city where the Irish coffee is strong and our opinions are stronger. We may not always agree or see eye to eye, but at the end of the day, we are a family. If you come for one of us, you will get all of us. We stand with immigrants. You belong.
Okay. So during this speech, Wu called out President Donald Trump and the federal government several times, criticized Trump's border czar, Tom Homan, and last month announced he was coming to bring Boston. So Tom Homan said, hey, we're going to bring Boston to bring hell. Okay, that's what he said. And he accused the city leaders of not complying with federal immigration laws. Yes, of course, they're not complying with federal immigration laws here. So this is what Wu says. She says, quote, no one tells Boston how to take care of our own, not kings, not presidents who think they're kings. Boston was born facing down bullies. It's funny. The funny thing here is that she's claiming to protect the rights of foreign nationals while turning American citizens into second-class citizens, okay, and legal residents into second-class citizens, okay. So the fact that some people don't cannot recognize that, I mean, it makes it so much worse. Clearly, that's what she's doing. Let's take a listen to this. This is Tom Homan on Fox News responding to some of Wu's comments earlier this month when she testified alongside Democrat mayors in other big cities, so Chicago, at a contentious congressional hearing, okay, about sanctuary policies. And we know that the 14th Amendment talks about this very clearly. It's your federal status, your federal citizenship supersedes and precedes your state level counterpart. Okay, so back in the 1800s, Democrat states, I think it's so funny how our history repeats itself. Democrat states thought they were entitled to define citizenship for the freed black slaves. Okay, and they said, oh, well, they're not citizens in this state, the freed black slaves, we're not going to grant them citizenship. And the federal government came in and said, no, you guys aren't the ones who determine citizenship or define citizenship. That's the federal government. That's what the 14th Amendment says. So let's take a listen to this clip. Here we go.
Shame on him for lying about my city, for having the nerve to insult our police commissioner who has overseen the safest Boston's been in anyone's lifetime. Bring him here under oath and let's ask him some questions. I am here to make sure that the city of Boston is safe. Others may want to bring hell. We are here to bring peace to cities everywhere.
Boston should be ashamed of her. Tom, your reaction.
Well, look, I was on an airplane today. I didn't see that hearing, but thank you for playing that because now I want to sleep like a baby. Because if I can get to live in her mind rent-free every day, that's kind of cool. I love my job. I work for the greatest president in my lifetime. We're making America safe again. President Trump promised American people we're going to shut down illegal alien crime in this country. That's exactly what we're doing. Mayor Wu should be standing side by side with me. Who does not want to bring hell to an illegal alien that raped a child? Not one, many of them. I stopped counting at 9. As far as the mayor of Chicago, about we're not making this community safer, I went up there, did a one-day operation. We took 7 TDA members off the street. We took 2 illegal aliens that were convicted of murder that they released, took them off the street. We arrested 6 child predators, took them off the streets of Chicago. ICE is making every one of those cities safer because they're releasing public safety threats back into the public. That in itself is just stupid policy, and we're going to keep going. Look, they can hate me all they want. We're coming. I said I'm going to bring hell. I meant it. I'm going to stand by it, and I'm going to do it. We're going to take child predators off the streets of these cities where they don't want to do it.
All right, but it was Tom Homan, and like he said, I don't know why she wouldn't want to do this. It is not possible to keep people safe while protecting those who completely disregard federal laws. Okay, the moment they arrive, okay, they entered through an illegal port of entry. They're criminal. They disrespect the laws of this country. It's not possible to keep people safe in your city if you allow those people to just not be held accountable for that. So Homan has made it clear that the intent is to shut down illegal alien crime, okay, where they, on top of also entering the country illegally, they're committing crimes. So it's deranged that she's got a problem with that, like Tom Homan said, and she refuses to admit that ICE removed criminals off her street. And that's why she's so vehemently out there and screaming about this. It's because she's trying to distract from the real problem here, which is that she had criminals on her street and she let them back out, just like, Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson did. And it's so interesting. She uses the word immigrant. Really, what she should be saying is criminal alien. So while she promises to do everything in her power to prevent Donald Trump and his administration from getting the worst of the worst off of the streets, out of her city, and out of the country, Tom Homan has promised hell. And he has made it very clear that he's not going to back down anytime soon. All right, I got to take a quick break, but you're listening to Conservative Cat Cities 92.9, AOC, Bernie Sanders, 2 of the most progressive Americans, or if you want to call them that, Democrats in America. They pathetically are fighting oligarchy, and they held this really weird rally. It's a bizarre rally, and I think they're trying to make AOC the face of the DNC or the face of the Democrat Party, which is interesting. Poor choice, if I do say so myself. I'll be right back. Yeah, very poor choice. I don't know why they're making AOC the face of this thing. Poor decision. So there was, I think this was in Arizona and Nevada. They're stopping at several locations. And they held a rally, and she talks about, freedom of speech. And this was particularly a clip that I wanted to share with you, because she's talking about freedom of speech. She's talking about living wage or whatever. And she claimed that she wants to live in America where you have free speech to express it yourself and not be, put on a list or deported. Interesting. I think it's so incredibly interesting. A lot of these parents who spoke at these school board meetings about the perversion of their children, about the masking of their children, they were put on a list. They were actually put on an FBI watch list. Okay. And her party did that. The Biden administration did that under his reign. So I've got the receipts here. She does not, and what she's talking about here and what they're referring to is this case where, and I forget his name, but he's with Columbia University in New York, and this guy was the leader of a lot of these anti-Jewish protests on campus, really riots. They were blockading Jewish students in libraries. They were afraid to move freely. Your freedoms end where mine begin. Okay, that's not free speech. You were harassing and hurting Jewish students, and your freedoms end when. And this guy was here on, I think it was a student visa at first, and then it became a green card, and Donald Trump revoked his green card. Okay. Why? Because, and I'll say this even biblically, right? There's a theme in the Bible where, you know, foreigners on land that's not their own, they're traditionally treat the kings of those lands very well. Whoever's land they're on, they treat the kings well, and the kings treat them well. That's what our immigration system should look like. We just treat each other with respect. If I allow you into my home and you start disrespecting my house and start breaking my stuff, I'm going to kick you out, okay? And I'm going to revoke your temporary status of staying in my house. You know, and it's just not going to happen. And of course, the guy lied, the Columbia University guy. He lied about who he was, and he came to this country really to wreak havoc on these campuses. In these encampments, and, you know, coordinate with multiple organizations to, you know, do these pro-Palestinian encampments. And he's a liar, and you don't lie about who you are. When trying to come into my house, you know, you could say that, hey, I'm a blender salesman, okay, and then you come into my house and it turns out you're not a blender salesman, that you're, I don't know, a crock pot salesman. Okay, well, I already have a crock pot. I don't need a crock pot. I invited you in under the pretense that you were a blender salesman, right? So I'm going to kick you out after learning that you're not a blender salesman. Okay, so we're going to talk about AOC, and I love how she ambiguously, you know, kind of talks about this livable wage thing, and like they always do. I'm going to talk about her freedom of speech comments. Tim Walz, we are going to get to him because Tim Walz is talking about the Department of Education. This is really important that we get to. Love them both. About how... Amen. Reagan and Trump. Love both. Reagan movie was enlightening about his focus from a teenage boy on communism. Now he took the wall down because he had a mission from God, I believe. Same with Trump. He has a mission to save America, and he is. Yes. Yeah. Very, very much. And, you know, the devil, evil, will definitely work to try to convince you that, and who was it? It was that pastor that, you know, totally disgusting and disrespectful, got up there and berated Donald Trump at this LGBTQ church. You guys remember, it was like some sort of bishop. But she was trying to say, you know, illegal immigration is, you know, biblical or whatever, and that we shouldn't, you know, require things of our foreigners if they're coming here. That's just totally unbiblical. Most kings in biblical times required things of the foreigners, and the foreigners required things of kings, and they worked together. Okay, just like your house, right? You have a door on your house with a lock on it. Okay, you don't just let anybody into your house. Okay, you protect your own. And really what this is, it's globalism. They don't want sovereignty. They don't want sovereign nations. They want one people. Okay, no countries at all, no lines at all. And that's biblical. In the end days, that's what happens, where there are no lines, no borders at all. And we are a one people, and a one people under, you know, the Antichrist who wants to rule you. That's what happens in the end times, and this is just all reflective of that. So let me get to AOC here, the face of the Democrat Party, I guess now. I'm kind of happy about this because, gosh, if AOC is the face of the Democrat Party, and if this is who they're putting out there, I mean, we have got this in the bag. This one is nuts. So AOC, Bernie Sanders, two of the most progressive Democrats in America, they pathetically tried to fight a form of oligarchy that doesn't exist, by the way, in this bizarre attempt to make AOC the face of the DNC. They held like rallies in several locations, Arizona, Nevada, and, you know, they go on rants. She went on rants, he went on rants, and she attempted to portray herself and her radical stances, policy stances, as common sense. Okay, that's what she tried to do here. And look, if she says this, she claimed that she wants to live in an America where free speech, you have the freedom to express yourself without being put on a list or deported. Well, that's interesting. Under Joe Biden, I know parents very personally who were put on FBI lists for speaking out at school board meetings about anti-masking policy or about masking policies and about the perversion of their children comprehensive sex ed. And I know that they were put on FBI lists. I know Catholics who were put on FBI lists because they were going to Latin mass. Take a listen to this. Here we go.
Because Medicaid, Medicare, and Social Security were promises that we as a people have made to each other about the kind of country we are and the kind of society we want to live in. And I don't know about you, Arizona, but I want to live in an America that guarantees health care to every person. I want to live in an America that has a living wage for every person. I want to live in America where you have free speech to express yourself and not be afraid of getting put on a list or deported. But these promises that we've made, they are not promises from politicians to the people, or they're not charity from billionaires to everyday Americans. They are promises we have made to each other. Neighbor to neighbor, friend to friend, teacher to student, family member to family member, that we want.
All right, enough of that. I'm sorry. I can't listen to the whole thing. I'm sorry. Firstly, AOC, she declares like some ambiguous wage as a livable wage, and that's what Democrats do. They'll say livable wage, and then livable wage changes every single year. And then the taxpayers are forced to pay livable wages for everybody. So, who aren't working. Okay, so, oh man, the evidence shows that it makes people worse off. By the way, the Cato Institute, and I'll have to pull this up here on the other side of the break, but the Cato Institute did a study on this. The evidence shows, well, let me just pull it up here. The evidence shows that it makes everybody worse off. So they found 4 reasons not to raise the minimum wage. Okay, the Cato Institute, and I can break down the results of this, but here's their synopsis. Some policymakers are proposing to raise the minimum wage, but that policy would be harmful. Research shows businesses would respond to the increased cost by reducing employment, particularly low-skilled workers. Some businesses may pass the higher costs on to consumers. Despite the hope of proponents, the minimum wage does little, if anything, to decrease poverty. In fact, it makes it worse, because ultimately what's going to wind up happening is businesses, they aren't going to be able to afford that, right? You're forcing people to pay this minimum wage, and ultimately we have to pay more as consumers, and there's going to be reduction in employment. So the numbers speak for themselves here. The evidence shows that that doesn't really help. So, and they always talk about this livable wage. It changes every single year. There's 15, there's 16, 17, 18, and it changes, with inflation and everything. But it's this ambiguous wage, okay, that they throw out there because it sounds pretty. But the evidence shows increasing it actually it's more harmful to the economy, and it causes people, it causes rampant unemployment. So I want to take a quick break. I'm going to get to the free speech thing, because she is the most anti-free speech person I know, or person I've heard, and I've met AOC. She's very tiny. She's very loud and obnoxious, but when you meet her in person, she's very not a very intimidating person at all. She's I don't know, she has to be 4 feet or something. But she was all about censoring Americans, especially during COVID. She even called for the Twitter to be shut down. She called for Tucker Carlson's podcast to be shut down. She's all about censorship. So I'm going to be right back. You're listening to Conservative Cat. Hey, they're radical socialists. Yeah, she and Bernie Sanders, radical socialists. At least, honestly, Bernie Sanders, I say this all the time, I think he's a fake socialist. AOC is too. They're not really even socialist communists. I think that they both are beholden to. So, for example, Bernie Sanders, he makes so much money off the pharmaceutical industry. They donate to his campaign all the time, but yet he's free healthcare, free healthcare. and really what this is all about is, you know, securing that taxpayer money, Medicaid, things like Medicaid, so that way um, the pharmaceutical industry can charge whatever they freaking want. So, for example, a box of tissues at the hospital, right? If you were to grab a box of tissues at the grocery store, they're like, I don't know, $3, something like that. Okay. Now at the hospital, they're going to charge you like, I don't know, 100, 150 bucks for the box of tissues. Why? Because you've got people like Bernie Sanders out there screaming about how healthcare is a human right, and they've secured all of this taxpayer money through Medicaid, and they have an endless supply of money. Okay, so if you take money out of your check every year or out of your check every week for Medicaid, there's an endless supply of money because they just increased taxes, and there's an endless supply of money. So who can charge, you know, they're going to charge, if there's an endless supply of money, 150 bucks for the tissues. Okay. They're the problem with the healthcare industry, people like AOC and Bernie Sanders. But really, ultimately, you know, he's beholden, and AOC is beholden to big, you know, corporate and these big corporations. Bernie Sanders, like I said, he gets campaign donations to the tune of billions of dollars, millions of dollars, funneled into his campaign in exchange for favorable legislation. Now, AOC, I mean, she's maybe a different breed. She's kind of reminds me more of like a Governor J.B. Pritzker, where, you know, we give breaks to everybody in foreign countries, even if those foreign countries are our adversaries, like the Chinese and things like that, radical Islamic, Iran, and we want to like no borders, right? That's what AOC is all for, the one people, and that's the plan. Like I said earlier in the show, of the Antichrist. This is all biblical. They want no sovereignty, no lines, no nations, no people of different nations. They want a one people, a one world order. Okay, so AOC is all about that. They're the actual oligarchy. Yeah. Doesn't he have several large homes? So much for fighting oligarchy. Yeah, they're the actual oligarchy. So, you know, they claim to be communist, socialist, and that's the oligarchy. Traditionally, like, look at communist China. Okay, they're advocating for the same things that Xi Jinping is all for. Xi Jinping is the oligarch. He is the tyrant, the dictator, the CCP dictator. Okay, so everything they're advocating for is ultimately going to uplift themselves, or even, and like that's what's really sad about this is like I think they're really just pawns. So Bernie Sanders is a pawn, AOC is a pawn. They're not the rich guys getting, I mean, they get rich, but they're not the guy at the top getting rich. The guy at the top getting rich is like your George Soroses, your Klaus Schwabs, these billionaires, you know, and they're out there fighting for things like housing is a human right. Okay, so they're going to go and they're going to do all kinds of regulations on these small landlords and force them out of the space. And then in enters BlackRock, and who ultimately benefits from that? The billionaires. Okay, so they're pawns in all of it. I don't even think that they really understand what they're doing. Hold on. Good morning. Hey, you're listening to Conservative Cat Cities 92.9. I wanted to get to this. I don't have a whole lot of time to get to it, but we're gonna play it real quick. This is AOC talking about free speech, right? And she says, "Oh, every American should have free speech." She is the most anti-free speech person I know. She called for Tucker Carlson's podcast to be canceled and censored. She called for you to be censored. Take a look.
Several members of Congress in some of my discussions have brought up media literacy, because that is a part of what happened here. And we're going to have to figure out how we rein in our media environment so that you can't just spew disinformation and misinformation. It's one thing to have differing opinions, but it's another thing entirely to just say things that are false.
Okay, so on top of that, she's also called for Fox News to be canceled. Tucker Carlson, she is not a free speech advocate. Okay, so people like her cannot win if it's left up to debate. So that's why she's pro censorship. Okay, she wouldn't win her debates if she didn't have the ability to censor people that she disagrees with. So that's why she's pro censoring people. And someone should really let her know that this stuff is deeply, deeply unpopular with the American people. The censorship, the misinformation, the media literacy. This is all right. She believes that she is the arbiter of truth, and the voters won't stand for it because they know that there is the truth, and she doesn't got it. She doesn't have it. All right. You guys have a blessed day. I gotta go. Bye-bye. I love you so much. Be back. Come back tomorrow morning for more news on Conservative Cat Cities 92.9.